May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. I knew I was in bad trouble when I discovered I had lost my glasses. Yeah, ouch. We were scrambling up a hill. We were crawling, actually. It was pretty steep when it happened. I didn't even know that they were gone until we got to the top, and I pulled out my map to have a look and see what we do next, and the glasses weren't in my pocket. My eyesight isn't that bad, but there's no way I could read a map without them. And when you can't read your map, you're in trouble. You don't know where you're going, and you can get yourself completely turned around trying to figure it out. It's a good thing Peter and Cyrus were with me on that day. After that, I started wearing one of those very fashionable chains to keep the glasses put. According to the writer of Hebrews, faith is the lens we can look through that clarifies a whole lot for us. Through it, we can see things that are obscured. By it, we can safely travel on our journey, seeking our homeland. With it, we can know where we're going. Whether we were explicitly taught what faith is, or we simply sort of picked it up along the way, which is how many of us learn, many of us think that faith is believing really hard enough that it works, and we get what we've asked for. Faith is holding firm, no doubting. And if you doubt even a little bit, well, your faith wasn't strong enough. There are certainly scriptures that seem to describe faith in this way. The problem with that definition of faith, though, is that it means it's your fault if your prayer for healing didn't work. It's your doubt that meant your loved one didn't get the job or didn't make it home safely Saturday night. And it paints a picture of a God who withholds those blessings and that care until we measure up. Faith is one of those words that the church has botched up over centuries. It's got to mean something more than that very thin definition. If it doesn't, what we call grace is a house of cards that falls down, and we're left needing to be good enough to deserve God's care, which is a pretty scary place to be. The writer of Hebrews says at least three things that can help us here. First, the author writes that faith is the assurance of things hoped for. Now remember, hope isn't the same as wishing. Wishing isn't bad. We all have specific things that we want. But hope is that spiritual energy that sees the reality in front of us, painful and difficult as it may be, sees that reality, and then looks past it to what is becoming, looking to a renewed reality, a reality made whole. So Hebrews tells us faith is what lets us say, yes, I see that hope beyond the current reality, and I can trust that it's coming to pass. Second, the writer says that faith is the conviction of things we don't see. This is an interesting one. We live in a world that says the only things that are real are the ones we can measure, things we can hold or look at, results that can be predictably replicated. That's what's real. Again, there's nothing wrong with evidence-based models for many things, but there are some things that can't be seen, let alone measured. Faith is the apprehension of those things. Faith says those things are just as real. Finally, according to Hebrews, faith is a mechanism for receiving God's approval. Okay, this one needs a giant flashing caution sign over it. It seems to support that idea that we need to be good enough. I remind you here that the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty. Faith isn't needed when we're certain. Faith is what sits next to us while we ask the questions and don't have the answers. And if faith is the way we receive God's approval, perhaps a more helpful picture is that of God gleefully applauding our non-certainty. Notice there's nothing in this description that says things will be easy or that having faith is a way to escape suffering. But faith described this way sounds calm. There isn't any striving or pushing away or grasping at anything. There's rest, even in the midst of struggle and all the unknowns. Abraham set out on a journey, not knowing where he was going and waiting for God to lead him. Our passage this morning skips a few verses in the text of Hebrews, but those omitted verses describe ancestors who, the writer says, also lived by faith. So, having offered this preliminary list of heroes of the faith, and we'll have the expanded version next week, the passage starts to describe what those who live faithfully are like. First off, the faithful are skilled at not knowing. They are able to tolerate and live with the not yetness of their experience, with things being unresolved, unknown. They seem to understand that it's an ongoing journey, not one that's concluded. They haven't arrived, and they, by faith, are okay with that. The next thing about these people who live by faith is that they have a sense of belonging somewhere else, knowing that home really is never to be found on earth. And they deeply desire to be there. It should be no surprise, really, that we struggle against what is. This that we experience is not new, and it's not all that there is. All creation groans for this new world here and in the life to come. These are the birth pangs of what God is creating and recreating. Jalaluddin Rumi, the Sufi poet, captures this longing, and I'm going to read part of a poem from him for you. The one speaking is a flute. Listen to the story told by the reed of being separated. Since I was cut from the reed bed, I've made this crying sound. Anyone apart from someone she loves understands what I say. Anyone pulled from the source longs to go back. Those who live by faith know we belong somewhere else, in our truest home that can't be seen or measured, and we journey toward it with each step. Finally, these faithful ones were affirmed by God, who was not ashamed to call them God's own. Maybe, O ye of little faith, really means, O ye who can't live with the questions, or O ye who think things should all resolve. A questioning faith is not an oxymoron. I've sometimes wondered that if I were doing this faith thing right, shouldn't life be easier? Wouldn't I feel better? The good news from the letter to the Hebrews today is that your struggles are not proof that you're doing it wrong. Faith isn't the card we tap on the vending machine to get our bag of chips. And it's no guarantee that things will be easy. Faith is the lens, there you are, that allows us to see what is obscure. No, it doesn't let us see the final end or the finished result, but it does let us see the map. We're strangers, we're foreigners in this land, on a journey to our homeland. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Go in your beautiful questioning faith, living among the visible, among the things that decay and fall apart, while still having confidence in the greater, invisible things. Go, knowing these things that we see by faith are as real as anything you could hold. Go, knowing that you are moving inexorably toward that homeland in God where you have always belonged. Thanks be to God.